Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good evening, this is Headliners. I'm Simon Evans, and very shortly we'll be looking at Wednesday's newspapers, getting a look at the front pages ahead of time. Before that, however, let's go over for the latest news headlines from Miranda Shunka.
Thank you. The top stories. The US president has responded to what's being described as the beginning of Russia's invasion into Ukraine by announcing a raft of tough economic sanctions. Joe Biden says President Putin's actions are a flagrant violation of international law, which demand a firm response. The US will now impose sanctions against 2 large Russian banks and sovereign debt. Oligarchs and their family members will also be targeted. Joe Biden also authorised the deployment of additional forces and equipment to strengthen Baltic allies, saying it's a defensive move, but the US has no intention to fight Russia.
This is the beginning of a Russian invasion of Ukraine, as he indicated and asked permission to be able to do from his Duma. Who in the Lord's name does Putin think gives him the right to declare new so-called countries on territory that belong to his neighbors? This is a flagrant violation of international law and demands a firm response from the international community.
Well, the move comes after the UK government imposed its own package of sanctions. The Prime Minister announced action against 5 Russian banks and 3 very high net worth individuals. Boris Johnson told MPs that Russia's troop deployment amounts to a renewed invasion of the country.
We will not allow Putin to drag our continent back into a Hobbesian state of nature where aggression pays and might is right. And it is precisely because the stakes are so high that Putin's venture in Ukraine must fail.
Well, meanwhile, Russia says it's started evacuating its diplomatic personnel from Ukraine because they're receiving death threats. The move comes after President Vladimir Putin was given the green light by the Russian parliament to deploy armed forces abroad for peacekeeping tasks. There are fears it could open the door for a broader attack on Ukraine. President Putin says the situation on the ground in Donbass will dictate the actions of the military. Well, in other news, severe flood warnings have been issued for parts of the West Midlands and Yorkshire. The Environment Agency says water levels could still rise in areas around the River Severn and the River Ouse after heavy rain fell during Storm Franklin. Flood-hit communities are calling on the government to fund permanent defences after dozens of homes were evacuated. And a legal requirement to wear face masks in shops and on public transport will end on March the 21st in Scotland. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon says that using restrictions to suppress COVID infections are no longer needed. Coronavirus passports are also being scrapped for nightclubs and large events. In contrast to England, the Scottish Government will continue its free testing programme and will advise people who test positive to keep isolating. Well, on TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Headliners.
Hello and welcome back to Headliners. Joining me tonight, Sajula Kershi and Andrew Doyle. Good evening, lady and gentlemen. How are you?
Good. Thank you.
Feels like it's been a long time. Although, in a way, not, because we were talking about Ukraine last time you were here as well. I think it was about 6 weeks ago. No, it wasn't that long.
I think we'll be talking about Ukraine for 6 weeks to come.
For some time to come. Well, if it still exists, I don't know. It's very much it's a figure of speech, isn't it? Ukraine. It seems.
Yeah.
Increasingly, it's an abstract proposition. It's a political.
Well, I'm so used to talking about it now because, of course, there's a new development every day. It seems to be the Ukraine show.
Well, we'll see what's coming up in the next 24 hours on Ukraine TV. Let's take a look at tomorrow's front pages. As you might expect, they are dominated by that crisis. We will start with the Daily Mail. Its front page headline says, Biden twisted, Putin is ready for bloodshed. Biden twisted Putin. That's a weird turn of phrase he has. I don't know whether that's the Mail or whether it's Putin himself has come out with that. And he wants to know, dear Lord, who has given Putin the right to speak the way he has. The Daily Telegraph has Putin is invading and will go much further, says Biden. The Independent goes with PM, urged to strengthen tepid Russian sanctions. That's the front page of The Guardian, you can see there. War threat grows as Putin backs Ukraine proxy states. And the Financial Times goes with Putin-backed separatist claims to hold Donbass region of Ukraine. The Times says West imposes sanctions as Biden warns of war. The Metro will grab him by the rubles. PM unveils first package of sanctions against Putin. And finally, the Daily Star. That'll learn him. Britain reacts to Putin's invasion of Ukraine by sanctioning 5 banks and 3 very rich Russians. Those being the tepid measures that other papers were complaining about. So let's start with the Ukraine. Let's start with the Ukraine. Some very strong words from US President Joe Biden this evening. The Mail, Andrew, with the same headline as pretty much everything else.
I mean, they're all going with it. They absolutely have to. I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time. Lots of people speculating about whether there would be war or not. It struck me that some of the commentators, it felt almost as though they were desperate for it to happen. You know, a lot of them were talking about this here, Biden sort of twisted Putin ready for bloodshed. So, I mean, the background is what we probably all know by now, which is that Putin has sent forces into the 2 areas known as Donetsk and Luhansk. And these areas have been engaged in a bloody conflict for around 8 years, ever since Russia went 2014, when Russia went into
when we last had a democratic administration in the White House.
Right, exactly. Yes, that's one way of dating it. And Russia has been backing the rebels within these 2 regions since then, and there have been apparently 14,000 people have died in the past 8 years within those regions, within fighting. So this is an ongoing conflict, but of course now at the moment, Putin sending in what he calls peacekeeping forces into these 2 particular areas of Donetsk and Luhansk could of course be seen as a pretext for Russian expansion, and that's the way it is largely being interpreted at the moment.
It's the sort of foreign policy equivalent of passing the ball into the back of the net, isn't it?
Yeah.
Instead of going on and launching a full-on invasion, it's a ticky-tacky style.
Yeah, and it's been a tricky one because I've been sort of struggling with what exactly Putin wants, and everyone seems to have different ideas about this. And he's been very clear himself that this is all about NATO expansionism. This is all about the overtures that the EU and NATO have been making to Ukrainian officials, that we want you on board. And of course, this is Putin's worst nightmare. It is true that NATO has been expanding eastwards for a number of years, and whatever we think about Russian nervousness about that, it is there. They are nervous about this. Putin particularly nervous about it. What's happened now, though, I mean, he's taking a very antagonistic stance just in the way that he's doing. This is more than saber rattling now. We've seen a lot of that. He gave this speech the other day where he mocked the sovereignty of Ukraine. So this is now, he's now.
He did genuinely seem to say, didn't he, that Ukraine was essentially a political theory.
He said it was a colony with a puppet regime. Is what he said.
And that it had been created by forces outside of the landmass, whatever you want to call it, to artificially divide a Russian people, a sort of a sovereign nation.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to be fair, not to be fair to Putin, but to be fair historically, that has been something that has happened over the years in the aftermath often of war. But I don't think it's an accurate assessment of Ukraine, is it? I think that is quite a an historically well-founded proposition. It's not like the former Yugoslavia or something, or these, or you know, the Sykes-Picot lines in the Middle East or whatever, just kind of scratched across a map by a couple of you know, English diplomats, and imposed on across tribal lines or anything.
I mean, I don't know what you think, Stuart, because I feel like we could endlessly speculate about what.
Well, what was interesting, I was on Twitter today. Third World War was trending.
Oh, was it?
And I was like, oh god, okay, because this is where people, you know, because people are sort of talking about this a lot, and obviously are worried about it. And I just see, really, I said it the other day, that like Russia, Putin is treating Ukraine like a relationship that's broken down, and he's happy to let Ukraine go, but then finds out that the ex-relationship is now seeing other people and mixing with the West, and he's not happy about that. And so now he's getting all possessive and angry and passionate, you know, and I think that's kind of...
There could be something to this. The idea you should never underestimate the sense of personal grievance and the way that Putin might be reacting to how the West has been reacting to this, in fact, because, you know, troops have been mounted on that border for over a year now, and there wasn't these sort of intimations of possible invasion. Really?
No. I mean, well, I think there is an emotional dimension to this, and Putin is somebody who does clearly remember the glory days of the Soviet Union. Not that the glory was very, you know, profound, but the sense that they were a superpower, which obviously he's led a humbled nation by comparison. There is also an enormous amount of material wealth to be gained if he were to be able to secure Ukraine, its food, its mineral resources.
But there's a lot to be lost as well.
Yeah,
there's a lot to be lost.
I don't think he cares.
Well, let's talk about that, Sir Julie. You've got the Metro, I believe, among others, have talked about let's grab him by the rubles. Is it? I think it's.
Oh, have I got this? I don't think I have that.
Well, you've got something on the.
Okay. We'll grab him by the rubles.
Yeah.
We'll grab him by the rubles. This is Boris basically going. I mean, Boris. Do you know? Can I just say, both leaders, Boris and Starmer today, really did react well, I thought, to this. Okay. And both acted like leaders and working together. I thought that was great. Do I think that they should go in with troops? I'd be very upset if they did. Like, where are they going to find the money for that? Because they're like cutting money left, right, and centre.
They're talking about economic sanctions, aren't they? And they're talking about, I mean, specifically, they're targeting 5 Russian banks. They're going to freeze the assets of the banks and the 3 major oligarchs who are going to have their UK assets frozen and their bank accounts frozen. I mean, we've spent a long time sort of inviting...
Do you know who they are?
Yeah.
Or are they not
nothing named in this article.
It's not the Chelsea fellow, is it? There must be some suspicion.
Wouldn't like to speculate. I mean, I don't know. But I don't know if that will help. But I do think Germany halting the approval of the pipeline will help, the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, because this is something that Russia really wants. And so therefore I don't think that, however, I mean, you invoke the idea of imperial nostalgia. I'm sure there's a grain of truth to that. But I don't think Putin would have the general support of the Russians in terms of the loss of the losses.
Although at the moment it's interesting. I don't know how it would play out because at this present time that pipeline hasn't been opened yet, so it's not a source of revenue. They wouldn't feel it in the same way that they would if they were to lose something.
That's true.
But they've also been banking on it to some extent. And I do know people. I don't know the detail, but I do know people who have said that the investment markets in Russia have absolutely taken a hit in the last 24 hours. Whereas obviously this is something, as we said, we've been talking about as long as Headliners has existed for 3 months now, and yet literally in the last 48 hours, certainly you can say finally it really feels like it's registered with the markets, and that's always a very telling sign because he can't survive that for very long.
It feels like Putin doesn't care too much.
I was going to say the same thing. I don't think he cares. I think this is his like kind of swan song.
He's braced himself for it, hasn't he?
Yeah, no, but I honestly think he's just going to go hell heather for this. This is my kind of parting thing, my legacy. And I do think it's based on relationships. Relationships, I was joking earlier on about but I do think like he sees the rest of the world, they're all siding with Ukraine. That's not actually making him happier. And I'd like to know what's happening with these talks that he's been having with all these leaders that have been trying to talk him down from the fence. I mean, I know, and you read out the statement earlier, like who on the Lord's name does Putin think gives him the right to declare so-called countries, right? So that's not going to make me, if somebody said that to you, Simon, that would get your back up. So I don't think the leaders are going about the right way to win him over and convince him
You
this
mean
is not
more like
racist.
something like a couples counselling service?
A couples counselling. I think, well, why isn't there one for countries? Yeah.
The Express next, and good news for the finance sector, potentially damaging news for the wider economy, Andrew. This is...
This is Rishi Sunak is talking about he needs to slash EU red tape. And this is quite an interesting story. He's talking specifically relating to the solvency rules which were introduced by the EU in 2016. So this is specifically affecting insurance companies.
Right. Yeah.
And what he's saying is because under the current regulations, insurers need to hold a certain amount of capital in order to cover themselves if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
And then this would...
That seems like a fairly basic requirement
does.
of an insurance company, yeah.
It does, of course. But this would reduce the amount of capital required. And the insurance companies have actually said explicitly here, this would free up the potential for further investment.
Right.
It's very interesting that this is happening because one of the arguments for Brexit, of course, all along was this idea that that it is essentially the EU is essentially a bureaucratic bloc and it ties all sorts of stuff up in red tape. And this would be a very tangible example. I mean, this is going to free up £95 billion worth.
Great.
So they say.
Wow.
So this would be a very tangible
It's an
example.
interesting expression that, though, isn't it? Free up. And I think they said unlock growth.
Yes.
You kind of want to know, because we all know that money doesn't really exist anymore. It's just digital and it just gets pinged back and forth across wires. In what sense? It's not sitting there in banknotes or gold bullion in the safe of the insurance company. It's probably invested to some extent already,
It can be redirected in more productive ways. I think this is the idea.
Higher risk investments, perhaps?
I mean, they specifically...
They won't in like rolled up banknotes.
Well, Legal and General have been specific about where it could go. They've said that they could invest billions more in the UK levelling up, net zero and science superpower agenda. So they've given some very sort of specific examples of how it can work. But, for a long time we've been talking about, how much does the EU hold up this country in terms of regulation, in terms of legislation, this kind of thing. And so this is actually a good opportunity for Rishi Sunak, potentially the next Prime Minister, to show that there's something good can come out of all of
Well, I mean, it's definitely, you're right, it's in the same, the sentiment is precisely that which activated Brexit. But there is also that memory, isn't there, of 2008, when part of the problem was that the fractional reserve banking system had been, increasingly liberalised, so that you say you've got to hold a 10th, then a 12th, then a 20%. 100th.
I'm just going to pick up what you just said about Rishi Sunak being the future Prime Minister. I'm sorry, I'm going to disagree with you on that.
Really? Go on.
No, I can't see him as a Prime Minister at all. Because I just don't think he's got the rubles.
Well, he's a bit boring, isn't he?
He's a bit dull. You need something a bit more. You need someone. I want someone with passion, and I don't like Boris, but he has passion, and I need that in a leader. I think.
No, but I quite like boring politicians because I think they're getting on with the job. I don't want politicians cracking jokes and having a good time.
No, I don't want them cracking jokes.
It's not a natural route to number 10, number 11, is it? Traditionally,
No,
because you have to present a very cautious and parsimonious even attitude. I mean, Gordon Brown would be the exception. He did have a pretty sticky time of it, didn't he? I mean, he was very unfortunate, but there was always that suspicion as soon as you got into number 10 that here you had a man who knew the cost of everything and the value of nothing. There is something about that in the Chancellor. It's not a great start for him, but also he doesn't really need it, does he? He's one of the wealthiest men in the country, isn't he?
There is that.
Independently.
I mean, and I do take Sajina's point that we're used to having big characters in number 10.
Yeah.
Well, that's also another issue. Apparently, he's much more diminutive when he's in context.
Yeah.
But, yes. The Mail is reporting on the Guardian columnist Hayley Freeman and her foray into the trans rights debate. Andrew, I noticed this myself. I'm interested to see that it's sort of inching its way into the regular news, the mainstream news.
It is interesting because it's been, this has been trending on Twitter inevitably all day. Hayley Freeman is one of the Guardian's big columnists, award-winning, very, very respected. And we've had a gradual kind of drip effect where people at the Guardian, people like Suzanne Moore, people like Julie Bindel, who used to write for the Guardian, people, feminists who are concerned about the debate surrounding gender self-identification and the potential ramifications for women's rights and women's single-sex spaces and that kind of thing, not being able to publish what they want to at The Guardian. And Suzanne Moore was quite clear about this. She said she was treated as an utter pariah. In fact, there was even a petition within The Guardian.
There was a petition behind her back, as it were.
Exactly. But now, someone like Hayley Freeman is making that move as well, although she's been very clear today because she's been accused of... She wrote an article for Unheard talking about this whole thing. But she was very careful in that article, to be fair, not to attack The Guardian. She wasn't attacking The Guardian.
I saw her tweet. She said, I want to make it clear I'm very much not leaving The Guardian, but this is my first piece for Unheard.
But inevitably it was taken to be a sort of tacit criticism of The Guardian because of what happened with the likes of Suzanne Moore.
It's extraordinary, isn't it, that The Guardian should seem like a place that has some hostility now, A, to women, and just B, to free speech generally. What do you think?
Well, speaking as an angry middle-aged mum and an Asian Karen, according to my son, as he says that all he ever remembers of his childhood is me saying, "Where's the manager?" I don't think it's a right or a left thing, right? I think there is a real concern across the globe. Women make up 50%, over 50% of the globe, and we're being shut down. You know, it's very worrying and silenced when we try and talk about biology. And I suspect, like looking at both your faces, it's not just women who feel so strongly about this. And I was really, you know, in sympathy with these women because they are getting shut down. I mean, I don't have any voice. I don't care. Nobody cares what I think or what I say. But I'm very worried that we are not allowed to have this conversation freely. And I really don't think it's a left or a right thing. And I think we've got to stop sort of like scoring points with each other.
It's crossing the floor, isn't it?
Yeah.
And funnily enough, I think it has actually made a lot of it. It's almost like the sense that everything has moved on. A lot of things that were controversial 5 minutes ago now seem to be set. And it's interesting how dividing lines that might previously, some people like myself, who probably wouldn't have called myself a feminist with a capital F, it wasn't considered, you know, but I now find I'm in strange new alliances.
One of the things that Hayley Freeman, I mean, I read the piece that she wrote for Unheard. It's a very good piece. And one of the things she's talking about, it's called Why I Stopped Being a Good Girl.
Yeah.
And it's about the idea that women who do take the stance that you've just described, Sajila, are automatically demonised as far-right or fascist or some bizarre things like this, and therefore left-wing publications like The Guardian and The New Statesman, they won't publish these views anymore. No. And Julie Bindel, I know, for instance, has written about how, well, now she writes for the Daily Mail, and she never thought that old-school socialist, left-wing, feminist. It's exactly what you say about these weird alliances, and I think you're right, it's not left and right.
And also, as a lefty, it just makes me really angry that people aren't being more brave and courageous and allowing these voices to be heard.
Well, on that note, this next story has some echo of that. Some rather distressing news from the host nation of this year's Football World Cup. This is in the Mail. Qatar not painting a great portrait of itself, Sajida. This is
this is really awful. So, female World Cup official faces a sentence of 100 lashes and 7 years in jail for extramarital sex after reporting that she was raped while working in Qatar. This is awful. So her name's Paula Shirtakat. She's 28 from Mexico. She's gone over there and she considered like someone a friend who came back to her place. He basically attacked her, raped her. She reported it, and instead of arresting the guy, they arrested her. And this is the law that's quite prevalent in a lot of Islamic countries. I know they had it in Morocco as well, where if you are raped, the only way to get out of being sentenced is to marry your rapist. I mean, this is horrific on so many levels.
They said that to her, didn't they?
Yeah, they said that to her. So basically, if you can marry it, like what?
When I read it, she said initially she went and she reported it. She had photographs and demonstrated evidence of bruising and everything. There was really not like a he said she said thing. It's like an horrific, physical attack. I mean, and then she sort of went home, and then she was called back in, and she was confronted with him.
Yeah.
And they were saying probably the best thing is if you
marry him.
Instead of which she took the opportunity to flee, basically.
Yeah, and obviously the police there are rubbish matchmakers. Yeah. This is just horrific. They're weaponising rape, and I know that Morocco had got rid of their law, which forced women to do that. I think human rights organisations had managed to change that. She escapes and she's got away, and it's great. But I have to say, having gone to Qatar to myself, and I went to see an uncle who'd been living there. They've got no rights. If you're an outsider, you've got no rights. It's a really difficult country. It's beautiful, but at the airport I was held for quite a long time because I had an engagement video which I wanted to show my uncle. And in the engagement video, there's my fiancé and I holding hands and and they were just like swearing at me in Arabic, like the guttural stuff is that's not racist, is it? I'm sorry. And swearing at me and saying that it was somehow like they saw it like porn, and my uncle had to literally bail me out, as it were. So it is very, very horrific. And this is where we're going to go with the World Cup.
I do think it's putting the England players in particular into a very sticky situation, isn't it? Given the height of the moral horse onto which they normally climb over any kind of perceived slight or deviation from progressive ideals.
Well, you have to accept that you're in a country which has a significant element of Islamic law, and therefore freedom of expression isn't going to be a priority. Homosexuality, they have obviously very stringent laws against that. Women are deemed second class for a lot of, they have to get permission from a male guardian to travel abroad, to do certain jobs, to, all sorts of things. That is a reality of this. So,
and it would be perhaps slightly more bearable if it was a country that had any sort of interest or history of playing football as well.
Yeah, but I'm just going to say it's not Islamic. This is not Islamic text that tells you to do this.
No.
That's the end of part one. Coming up, we'll be discussing how farmers are being hung out to dry by the government, toddlers firing guns outside McDonald's in America, obviously, and much, much more. We'll see you very shortly.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
And welcome back to Headliners. Joining me tonight, Sajila Kershi and Andrew Doyle. Let's crack on with more news-related hilarity. The Sun is reporting on a potential cost of living crisis due to strike action at a refinery in Southampton. Sajila, this is all we need.
Oh, gosh, yeah. So drivers could be hit by petrol shortage next month as workers are threatening to strike. Now, petrol supplies could soon be hit if workers at the country's largest refinery vote to strike, as prices are forecourts near record highs. Now, the thing is, workers protesting, they've proposing to go on strike because they've only been given a 2.5% annual rise at for the next 2 years. That's an absolute insult.
Yeah.
Inflation is at 5%. They're getting 2.5%, which is like a 50% reduction, basically. So I don't blame them for going on strike.
Not a 50% reduction.
Well, it's
half.
It's half of what the cost of living is. Yeah. And but obviously, this is going to affect the rest of us. Well, I'm not a driver, so I don't know the cost. I mean, it's going to cost £85 for a family car.
Well,
I have no idea how that works out in terms of petrol.
But apparently, I mean, it's all related to the cost of living crisis. Like you say, that's not a sufficient increase in wages to match that, given the situation at the moment. And then the growing tensions in Russia is likewise going to suggest that energy prices are going to go up. Although what I will say about this article is obviously petrol shortages, petrol crises, they always make big headlines, but we don't know if they're going to strike. That's something we should emphasise. They've just taken a vote. We don't know whether, so it's probably premature to get too worried.
Just to be clear, this is a private sector. This is a union that is.
It's workers at the largest refinery.
Yeah.
It's the ExxonMobil Fawley refinery near Southampton. It's a big deal, and the union obviously have echoed what you've said, Sajila, which is that this is an insulting proposition to give them the rise of 2.5%. But they've voted, but we don't know yet what the result of that ballot is.
No.
So I'm just saying, I'm just exercising a bit of caution in case it doesn't actually happen.
Well, fingers crossed. I don't know. It's a long time since anyone offered me a raise. Is
that a hint?
Yeah. The Guardian next, and Justin Trudeau has managed to extend his government's emergency powers despite the fact that the truckers seem to have gone home and everything is quiet. This is exactly what people were worried about.
It's like he's playing out everyone's worst fears. I mean, this is, the thing is, that over the weekend, the truckers were dispersed. He introduced these emergency powers, which froze the bank accounts of some of these protesters. It was very sort of draconian stuff, and there was some horrible viral footage of the police turning up with their riot shields and their police, someone being trampled by the police horses. And I just think there's been a very sort of, I used the word the other day, authoritarian, to describe this, and I got a lot of flack for doing so, but I stick by it. I think a peaceful protest has to be part of a democracy, and just because there are some elements, with any major protest, you get some dodgy elements, getting onto the side of it, and they're sort of...
It's tricky though, isn't it? I mean, I'm just to be like the devil's advocate, I don't like Trudeau, and I am concerned about Canada's drift in that direction, but it's a little bit of a fudge to call it a peaceful protest. Just because there was no violence, they had a stranglehold on the nation's economy. They blocked off the major arteries of trade between America and Canada. It's a little bit like saying that the sanctions we're going to impose on Russia are a peaceful protest. They're clearly intended to, force you into a line of political action.
But that's a debate to be had about when peaceful protests cross the line into criminality. And the idea of civil protest and disruption. Disruption is part of protest, and so that's certainly a debate that we can all have. But what I don't think the solution is to impose draconian measures of this kind straight away. And what's made me very nervous about it is the way in which so many Canadians seem to be fine with this. I get it's annoying.
Are they fine with it? I don't know if they are. My family like really riled about this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I mean, it's... Okay, so if you've got like a protest, and I've been on marches where the police have kettled us or they've kind of like pushed us back or whatever, that's one thing. But then they're going into their bank accounts, and I'm sorry, but there is a line to kind of like imposing on.
That they were getting funds from what they perceived to be far-right American organisations from across the border, and they believed it to be what amounted to a coup, essentially.
But all of this stuff is fantastical. You had that woman from in the Canadian Parliament the other day saying that because their slogan became honk honk because it was the horns, that was a reference to Heil Hitler. I mean, this stuff is delusional. Honestly, I'm not making that up. I wish I were.
There was a strong sense that Trudeau's lost control from some time ago, really, wasn't there? Because it's a strange country to us, Canada, just because it normally seems so quiet, so placid, so polite, and so well integrated, a multi-ethnic community that has managed to sort of grow and rub along pretty well, and seems the regime wanted to bend over backwards to acknowledge prior crimes and misdemeanours.
But also,
suddenly all this has erupted out of nowhere.
I don't know that the Emergencies Act should have been used. I'm not sure this was an emergency.
It's certainly not extended. I mean, now it's being extended when it has.
It had never actually been used before. It was entirely theoretical, wasn't it? There was no precedent. Anyway, The Independent now, some positive news for once. Colombia, well, I say positive. That's a bit like the Rain Man. But never mind. Colombia has decriminalised abortion, Sajila. So I guess a progressive move.
God for this, yes. So women can now have an abortion during the first 24 weeks is the latest win in reproductive rights in Latin America. They've decriminalised abortion. Back in 2006, there was some progress being made. Colombia decriminalised pregnancy terminations for women whose life was at risk, or they had been victims of rape, or there was something wrong, with the fetus. So this is a huge step, and other Latin American countries have been following suit, and it couldn't come soon enough. I don't know how how we have not got the whole world saying that all abortion everywhere should be decriminalised and my body, my rules. It's, you know, bodily autonomy is so important, especially for women right now. Yeah.
Well, it's a political hot potato in some countries that have had that law for a long time, isn't it? Still, so I think it would be difficult to. Are you sort of suggesting you think other countries should impose sanctions until places like Colombia?
No, I think other countries should follow suit and decriminalise it, because we get a lot of. It's usually faith-based.
You're for it, but just to be clear, you're not arguing that other countries should demand that other countries.
Should other countries demand? I think we should gently persuade, Simon. We should gently persuade. Okay. Yes.
The Times next, and the exodus of BBC talent continues. A certain amount of Schadenfreude for GB News here, Andrew, although I don't think they're coming our way, are they?
Well, I'm not, as far as I'm aware. No, this is Emily Maitlis and John Sopel have announced that they're leaving the BBC. And this has surprised a lot of people at the BBC. They've signed a deal with LBC and Classic FM, or the radio company, behind LBC and Classic FM.
So they're not actually going to appear on LBC?
It isn't clear here. It said that Maitlis has worked for 20 years at the BBC. Sopel, for 40 years, he's been there a long time. They're doing something relating to podcasts, according to this. They're going to be doing a global podcast. And they're both very excited about it.
They did, but they part of the Americast thing that was very popular, I think.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Newscast
and
and Americast.
People do get their news from that sort of
And but it has surprised. We've had, obviously, Andrew Marr made a similar move before.
Yeah.
Marr, when he did this, interestingly, talked about how he could do journalism with no filter. There is something in this which I think is quite interesting for... If you're a journalist and you're working for the BBC, you have to uphold impartiality. Being the state broadcaster, that is very, very important. There is something... I mean, this article specifically mentions GB News because it talks about how other broadcasters go the other way and say your presenters can say whatever they want. They can express their opinions.
Yeah.
We're subject to Ofcom, so we want to hear all sides. But it is liberating to work at a channel where you can say what you think. And I don't envy people at the BBC who are curtailed in terms of what they can say.
Maitlis was actually not quite disciplined, but there was a degree of public humiliation after there were a couple of intro speeches she gave on Newsnight, I remember. One about Johnson is lying, everyone can see he's lying. This was over the Dominic Cummings thing, wasn't it, when he went to Barnard Castle?
Yeah.
And there were mutterings that she had breached, and yet in the wider media ecology, most people would have looked at that and thought it was well within the bounds of.
But it annoys people when it's the BBC.
Yeah.
Because of
they expect it at the BBC, and I don't know if there is ever anything as impartial kind of reporting. And I thought that's what this story was related to. And then I was reading and said that there is actually across all the presenters that have left, there's over 1,000 years of experience that the BBC have lost. So 1,000 years, I think, that's like dinosaur years. I thought, well, actually, they are probably dinosaurs, middle class, middle-aged white people. They need to move on and let the new kids on the block in, I guess.
Oh, so you want the BBC to feel young and trendy?
And young and trendy, and all the young people that we hate.
David Baddiel will be on you, calling her a middle-aged white lady. Jews don't count. The Guardian next, and ghost flights are in the news again. This is weird, isn't it?
Oh, gosh. OK, so thousands... I was really shocked to read this. Thousands of near-empty planes have been flown since March 2020. So 15,000 ghost planes have departed from the UK, according to figures. So they wanted to keep their slot. So they kept flying out. I thought there was no planes going up. I thought, this is great. It's great for the
dolphins.
The environment, the planet. We've got no planes. And I was thinking that's a positive of me being locked down. But no, these planes were still flying. And I was livid because I thought, thousands of flights going out, all those times when I've been taking flights and they've been packed full of people, coughing and spluttering, and I could have had all those seats sleeping on myself.
Roaming up and down.
Exactly.
Yeah. I Am Legend, but on a...
I didn't expect you to cite a Will Smith film.
I think that's the last thing I'd expected from you.
I didn't realise this either. This is to do with the landing slots. Apparently, if they don't put the ghost flight out, they lose their landing slots and they get penalised for future flights. So it's in the interest of airlines. I didn't realise there were so many, though.
I know, it's outrageous.
It's hard to know how many that is, isn't it? When you see numbers like that, I don't know what percentage of the normal number, because there definitely were. The skies were a lot emptier. We live quite near Gatwick, so I have some sense of it. It did definitely go quiet.
Well, I can imagine the environmentalists are annoyed that even if proportionately it's not so many, 15,000 needless flights.
Yeah.
When you put it like that, given the how much carbon footprint.
Yeah, exactly. And if
well,
you're going to
got
fly,
the chemtrails up there because that's how they're doing the mind control. You see,
Right,
that's what
I
it's
see.
about. Is you've got to spraying the mind control. You know about the chemtrails? You're looking at me like you don't know about the
no,
chemtrails.
I don't know the chemtrails.
You see the big sort of steamy jets that come out of the back.
Oh, okay.
Those are chemicals used to control your mind and make
Conspiratorial.
and make you
Well,
think the government's propaganda.
we both live near Gatwick, so I think we should at least have those.
Yeah, but I
Very
wear
suggestible.
I wear the hat and the mask. The Mail next, and the government have failed the farming industry spectacular. This is a distressing story about a number of animals that were going to be being slaughtered.
Well, look. Well, I do find it distressing as a vegetarian. You know, I can say this. I don't think this is right.
Yeah.
No, of course, all farmyard animals are condemned to die eventually. For
they are all born athwart a grave,
as Beckett said. Yeah, very good. But this is 40,000 pigs. They're healthy pigs. There's nothing wrong with the pigs. They were culled because of a lack of butchers.
Yeah.
And I was reading this article trying to work out what's going on here. So the industry leaders are blaming the country's dysfunctional immigration system.
Yeah.
They say this has been exacerbated by the pandemic. Some people are blaming Brexit, but of course Brexit will be blamed for everything.
The funny thing is, because we heard about the fruit pickers, because that's kind of fairly low-paid immigrant transient labour that goes very early on and is very responsive to the change of Brexit and so on. I would have thought butchers was a slightly those people would have been slightly more anchored. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I'm surprised.
I'm surprised we don't have.
I'm surprised. I'm just upset about
professional. It's a seriously skilled job.
Yeah.
Well, I'm upset that 40,000 healthy pigs were being culled when they could have been flying on those planes. Empty planes, and there could have been 2.6 pigs in each flight.
Could have released them into
Pigs can fly.
Madrid and Malaga, and they're just like running around, greased up. It is sad though, and it is annoying. I mean, how much would it have cost just to keep them alive until the butchers could be trained up? I don't know. I suppose they.
I mean, this article very much isn't focusing on the animal rights issue.
No. Well, it's a blunder. But again, perhaps it would be useful to know what percentage of the total pig population that is. We have Berlusconi next, joining forces with a sexologist. You'd always think that you're going to lose Berlusconi, and then back he comes. It's
like Tony Blair, just keeps coming back.
Yeah. I feel like I hadn't heard from him for 10 or 15 years, but he is joining forces with a sexologist. Not for the first time, obviously, selling genius magpies and much more. First, the weather. See you shortly.
Good evening. The winds are calming down at the moment, but they're going to pick up again tomorrow. A windy Wednesday with wet weather for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Largely dry day to come across most of England and Wales. This weather front's been pushing south today, and it's going to be followed by a similar one tomorrow. And as that one approaches, the isobars squeezing together, so the winds will increase through tomorrow. But at the moment, certainly compared to recent days, the winds are a lot lighter, and with clear skies, that's allowing temperatures to fall. So quite a cold night across England and Wales. But here comes that next band of rain into the northwest, and the winds picking up here as well. Enough of a breeze to stop too much of a frost, but certainly in the countryside, temperatures are likely to drop down close to zero. But a bright start for the Midlands, southern and eastern England on Wednesday. Some good spells of sunshine. The winds will strengthen though. We do have a Met Office yellow warning across northeast England and southeast Scotland. Gusts of wind of 40, 50, maybe 60 miles an hour. A wet afternoon for Northern Ireland and central Scotland, and the rain starting to turn more and more to snow across the far northwest as colder air pushes in here, but quite mild still for England and Wales, where, bar the odd shower, most will have a dry day. We will see the rain pushing southwards, though, during Wednesday night, and then we're going to see more of the snow showers coming in, and we have another Met Office yellow warning for snow and wind across parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland, and that lasts well into Thursday as well. We'll start with rain across East Anglia and the southeast on Thursday. That should scoot away, and then we'll see sunshine and showers, but these showers of snow could cause some problems with the snow really building up, especially on some of the higher routes. But even at low levels for a time, some snow on Thursday across western Scotland and Northern Ireland, perhaps even into parts of southeast Scotland. With those strong winds, that's going to make for some pretty hazardous driving conditions. Sunny spells for many elsewhere on Thursday, but it's going to feel cold wherever you are.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
That you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. Joining me tonight, Sajila Kershi and Andrew Doyle. So the Mirror next, Sajila, with a very American story.
Oh, it's so American. So there is a family, well, a father and two kids, a toddler, 3-year-old toddler, and a 4-year-old, who go through a drive-through. Altercation happens, doesn't get maybe the carrot sticks, and so he tells his son to shoot the policeman, and the little hand comes out. He really has a gun. It's not just made out of a McDonald's like little toy thing. And the little tot puts his hand out and holding his arm out with a gun, and the policeman just sort of moves it, so he shoots up to the top of the McDonald's. And, I think the tot should have shot the dad for being the worst dad in the world. This is awful.
Well, I mean, it just reminds me of why we need gun laws, because if you've got a gun and you get... Because a lot of the time, these mild altercations escalate because of human passion, and so someone ends up getting shot over a Big Mac.
And then what are they going to be? Like minimum wage, not much more than that.
Right.
It's not enough to cover you for that kind of eventuality, is it?
No. There's been a few stories like this recently as well of people... there was an argument in a shop over a mask, someone not wearing his mask, and someone got shot and then shot himself because he'd shot...
But that's adults. This is getting your son a tot.
Father said to the toddler,
pick up gun. I know.
It's terrible.
What an awful dad.
It is strange, isn't it, to think... It's just... You think of America as being a country roughly like this country, and in some important ways it just is nothing like it whatsoever, is it? No. It's like something out of a parallel.
No, but if everyone had guns here, they'd be doing stuff like that as well.
Oh, yeah, we're very lucky. I've always said that. The Mail next, and the Tower of London is going to have a slight redesign for the Jubilee, Andrew. I find this slightly distasteful myself.
I find it a little bit distasteful. Well, not distasteful. I don't agree with the choice. It's the moat at the Tower of London, which of course has been, empty for since the 1800s.
Yes.
Now they've had ice rinks in it and stuff, and they've had various sort of...
the ceramic poppies.
The ceramic poppy thing. Now they're going to use it for the Jubilee. They're going to plant... They're getting these horticultural experts to plant millions of flowers. The clever thing, however, is they're planning it in such a way that with each season, the general colour scheme will change naturally.
Yeah.
So you go back there in October, and the whole colour scheme will have changed.
But that's not the distasteful part.
Well, what's distasteful to me is like the Tower of London, and I know it's a royal palace and it's been used for various things, the Royal Mint, but I see it as first and foremost a place where grisly things went on. Anne
Yeah.
Boleyn died. Catherine Howard. Lady
It's quite
Jane
austere
Grey.
bit of
It's
history,
austere.
isn't it?
I
Yeah.
like the bleakness. I like
Yeah.
the ravens with the clipped wings. I like the fact that the Krays were there.
Yeah.
Were imprisoned there. I think go for the bleak. Don't go for these sunshine,
Again,
lovely
in the
flowers.
midst of life, here is death. You
And
know,
they're also
it's
gonna
in
have-
Arcadia Ego.
I should say the story talks about they're going to have a giant slide.
The slide, that's the bit.
Down into the flowery meadow.
Oh my
It's
God.
too idyllic.
Shrieking kids.
It's more. That's a Bollywood film set. That is.
Yes, it is.
Honestly, that is a Bollywood film love set. But also taking them years to actually find an escape route from the tower.
Yes. Maybe that's what poetic. you
Yes,
see.
yes.
Maybe.
But I agree with you. I mean, it's fantastic actually once you get inside the. It's almost like a medieval film set. The
Yeah,
whole,
it
not
is.
not just
Yeah,
the tower,
yeah.
but there are old streets and houses and it's
Yeah.
a bit. Let's say medieval. It's more like sort of Samuel Johnson era or something.
Little communes. There's a pub for the beefeaters.
Yeah,
And stuff like, you know,
you could shoot like some movie set in that time of London there, and it.
Yeah, but
don't want
a
to slide.
slide into a flowery meadow, it's so schmaltzy.
Yeah,
it doesn't
it's
sit
wrong.
well
It's totally
aesthetically with the Lady Jane Grey experience.
No, absolutely. I want blood dripping off of cleavers. That's what you want. Berlusconi, then, who's back in the news, looking like Dracula, I'm sure. Still, this is from the Independent. What's he up to, Mr.
Okay,
Bunga Bunga?
so our favourite sex pest, allegedly, Silvio Berlusconi, is launching a politics course together with an Italian university on a course taught by lawyers, politicians, and wait for it, a sexologist. Why? Because it's Berlusconi.
Yeah, of
right?
course.
And also the sexologist, she's a 34-year-old psychotherapist who's got a background in clinical sexology and treatment for sexual disorders. And why she's been asked is that she's going to be tasked with teaching body language in public communication and the art of communication in politics.
Nice.
He's 85 years old. And he's not letting up, is he? Those little blue pills are keeping him going.
Very impressive.
And his brain going as well. So, yeah.
They like a sexologist in politics, don't they? They had that porn star. What was it, La Cicciolina? Do you remember? She was the one who was married to Jeff Koons for a while, and he's sort of memorial of it. She never actually became president or prime minister or whatever, but she was like she was like the mayor of Rome or something.
I think keep it out of politics. And business moguls like Berlusconi. I mean, obviously, this is so. Lots of people are picking up on the irony of all of it. I mean, he's doing a course in how to be an effective politician. This was the man, wasn't he, who got the Italian Parliament to change the law so he couldn't be prosecuted for his corruption.
Yeah.
And he won't be
He's
teaching
on
those
another
kind of-
level. Absolutely,
Yeah.
he is. But because he's lovable Italian, he gets away with it.
Because he has all the orgies, isn't it?
Bunga bunga.
The bunga
I still
bunga.
don't know what a bunga bunga party is, but if anybody wants to invite me to one, I'm willing to give it a go.
The Mail next, some rather clever magpies, Andrew. I do like a clever COVID. Corvid, they're called, aren't they, the crows?
Yes, they are smart. Well, magpies, they're thieves, aren't they? They're kleptomaniacs. But this is a new level of smart. So there was this scientific experiment in Queensland, and they fitted the magpies with a tracking device, quite a sort of hefty thing. And they made sure that it couldn't be dismantled by the magpies themselves. But they've now observed, well, it has happened, fellow magpies helping them to take it off, right? Yeah. Because they added a button, a sort of
one for sorrow, two for joy.
Well, yes, I'm
That's
sure
where it comes from.
Maybe that's prophetic. There's a little button 1 millimetre wide just under the breast, which the magpie itself couldn't reach. So other magpies have been helping each other to.
That's adorable.
It's either adorable or terrifying.
Or Jack-dorable, possibly.
Jack-dorable. You're all weak.
I'm not a fan of birds showing this kind of intelligence.
Oh, we've seen Hitchcock.
We know what happens.
Yeah, we know what happens.
Isn't it? When birds of a feather and other birds start flocking together.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
on a roll here.
No, that was the thing.
This is the Sex Edinburgh show.
The Hitchcock, the scene, it was birds of different types.
It was all...
Because if you just see loads of pigeons or seagulls together, that's one thing. But when you see blackbirds and crows and sparrows and starlings all lining up together, that's what made it scary.
It was missing the penguins and chickens.
Yeah. Well, funny enough, is it penguins coming up? No, that was in a book I was reading today. Sorry. Feel-good story from the Mirror, Sajida.
Okay, so what have we got here? This is quite a feel-good story. A family left speechless by a vet's letter that was sent to them after their dog was put down. The family dog was put down. His family dog is called an 18-year-old called Sunny, so sweet. And they were heartbroken after saying their final goodbyes until they received a letter. And the letter basically from the vet reads, "Hello, my name is Helper. I am an angel. There are lots of angels in heaven, and we all have different jobs. And it goes on to say, one of the head angels told me that you were worried about Sonny and asked me to write to you. And it goes on and says how Sonny is in a good place, don't worry, and sort of comforting to the children in the family. And I thought that was adorable, just going that like little step further in your job. And I think if everybody does a little bit more than they need to, I thought that was really sweet.
Working to that. Apart from that,
are they taking a bit of a risk? Because the claim that dogs have souls is blasphemy in certain religions. I mean, maybe the family would have been very offended.
Might not be going to the same heaven. It might be a different
dog heaven.
A dog heaven. I don't think dogs are religious. I don't think
Catholics aren't
isn't it? There's other people have discussed this, of course, but it is tricky, that idea of heaven, because that is the first question children have. Is he going to heaven? And am I going to see him? Then you get another dog, and you think those two dogs wouldn't get on. I mean, we have a dog that we had for about 4 years, and it was not a good family dog. It used to growl at Matilda's friends and so on. It genuinely went to live with my in-laws, not as a kind of euphemism.
I thought that was like genuinely went to live with my in-laws, which is
went to live on the farm. It went to live with my in-laws, and then their other dogs died, and so now their only dog, and then actually my father-in-law died as well. So now it's just my mother-in-law and this dog. And we got another dog, a much more suitable dog, a golden retriever, very placid and adorable. But when the other dog comes back and visits, there's quite a lot of there are issues.
Some dogs would go to hell.
Yeah.
If there is a canine afterlife,
no, they both kind of deserve to go to heaven, but they couldn't go to heaven and our heaven.
I'm sure
if you know what I mean, it would be.
They've got different sections, and they can deal with it. And the helper, the angels.
The angels.
Can
the
deal
angels.
with that.
Yeah, that's what angels are. They're trained, aren't they? Yeah. On to North Korea next. Where else? But the Daily Star. Would we get our North Korean intelligence from? A number of military officials are in hot water, Andrew.
Oh, I haven't had this story.
You don't know what this is about?
No, I haven't had this one.
OK, so North Korean military... is yours name? But North Korean military officials have been punished for owning impure videos, and including porn. There's been Hollywood films in there, K-pop records and other South Korean media considered dangerous by North Korean authorities. This got me thinking, what kind of films would be worthy of a death sentence for you? What film would you die like? I'm watching this no matter what.
Well, K-pop, definitely. Absolutely addicted.
Do you find K-pop insufferable? But you have to be careful about that, because K-pop fans online are the most extreme and angry people in the world. If you say anything against them,
they will overwhelm you.
There's a lot of angry people out there.
Well, they did it to Anne Hegarty from the Chase, the governess, when she said something about BTS, the boy band, saying it was just a dispensable boy band. And they piled on to absolutely... scary stuff.
I have no idea what the kind of media world, if you're a film fan, is in North Korea, because I know there are certain films I think I wouldn't risk my life for it, but I like to be able to watch movies. But if you could only get one or two, would that link up to become meaningful?
Well, but it surprises me that I was under the impression that the Kim Jong-un was a fan of some Western films. And
Fight Club.
Didn't he claim that his father invented the hamburger?
Yeah.
Yes.
It seems mixed messaging.
Lots of mixed messaging. And I thought, am I getting this wrong? I thought this was on headliners about the Fight Club.
Fight Club?
No, that was the Chinese government changing the ending of Fight Club.
These stories, they all blend in now, don't they?
Well, we've come to our own happy ending now. We've defeated the terrorists. That's all we have time for. Thank you to my guests, Sajila Kershi and Andrew Doyle. I have been Simon Evans. Thank you for watching. Headliners is back at 11 o'clock tomorrow night. I will see you then. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for...
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and every weekday we bring you The Briefing live from 9:30 a.m. The stories, analysis and live debate that you need to hear.
Quite right, Tom, of course.
Was this something that had been considered at all?
Difficult to answer.
Gas-guzzling helicopters circling. Noise is being made here.
Joe Biden walking out. Thank you very much for joining us. Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. on GB News.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all